Hello and welcome! It's Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 72. I'm Enigmius and today it's all about the profiles. All day, this day, profiles. We started in the last episode, we did this sort of long curved kind of thing, and we're working on making it the curve that we want it to be. And that kind of highlights the whole importance of this profile thing is we've got this single line of blocks that we're using to create a shape that will guide the rest of the design work around that area of the ship. And in this case, it takes a little while sometimes to get things set up the way that we want them. Things that start off in our head don't always get into the game the way we envisioned them the first time. And it's so much easier to modify a line. See, this is not a curve at all. That's kind of a joke of some sort. I don't even know what that was. But you get the idea. Sometimes things, we try it and it doesn't work out. It's so much easier to modify it and correct it and get it the way that we want it when it's just a line of blocks that represents a shape. And then we have the opportunity to fill in between the different profiles that we create to get ultimately the hull design that we want. Now, this becomes more and more important, or more beneficial, I guess I should say, the larger the ship. For smaller ships, it's almost like you do the profiles and the ship is done. It's not big enough to actually have anything left to build around them. But in this case, and especially when we start talking about more complex hull designs with angles and curves and all these different things intersecting with one another, it really is an asset to take a little bit of time and set up the profiles, get it the way you want, and then move on and fill things in as you like. And of course, as with anything else, the nature of the game is if you don't like it, you come back the next day and you say, wait, what the hell did I do? You can change it. And again, because it's a profile instead of a whole structure, much easier to do. Now the whole idea here is that I'm trying to bring a curve from the top center of the ship, if we're looking at it from the front, and bring it down towards the side in a way that's convincing. Like that looks like a fairly respectable curve. The only thing that I didn't like about it at this point was that it's too much straight on the 90-degree left-hand side. If you follow it all the way down as far left as it goes, it's just a straight line all the way down. There's too much straight there, and we're going to fix that later. But for now, this almost ends up being a lesson in what happens when you don't use profiles. Because you can see, if you look at it, in the last episode, we did kind of a profile. We did sort of that 22.5-degree angle sweeping down along the right side. And then from the top of that, moving up and sweeping back is sort of a curve, but it's the wrong profile for what we're trying to do here. And then in order to fill it in, we basically have to build the structure. We can't do another profile very easily because we've built too many angles and other things into this one already. The consequence is that it's a little bit unwieldy to work with. And as I'm messing around, swapping things around, changing different blocks, changing different shapes, I never really reach a point where I'm happy with what it's looking like, especially when you consider that it's supposed to be as though we've taken an elliptical tube, emphasis here on tube being something that's hollow in the middle, and smushed it into the side of the ship. And right now what we're building so far is solid, it's not hollow. And as I was building it and looking at it and trying to figure out how I was going to make it hollow and look half decent, it was just another layer of challenges that I wasn't satisfied I was going to be able to overcome to my satisfaction. Satisfaction. Important things. You get the idea. So for now, we're just going to kind of leave it. When we get around to redoing the profile, you'll see a little bit better what I'm talking about when I say doing the profile from the front first and then from the side after. That's not a hard and fast rule. It's just in this particular instance, when we're looking at it, it would be better if I did the front profile the way that I just did with the arc coming down from the top of the ship than what we have here. Now in this case specifically, you can see we just changed that left hand side. Remember I said it was too much straight? We just kind of extended the curve a little bit, just ever so slightly, so that it goes a little bit farther to the left and then comes back around to the original hull design. That to me is the kind of simple change that makes a really big difference. So I was pretty happy about that, and we're going to stick with that for the time being at least. And now we get an opportunity to kind of look at where there might at some point be an opening where these things, the hull and the air intake, intersect. We'll have to wait until we do the profile to actually get that finalized, because as you can see, it's just a big solid block. But what we can do in the meantime is we can do some other profiles. That to me just struck me as a better idea rather than fixing it right away. We'll come back to it. In this case, what I'm looking at doing is the profile from the front of the ship back towards that center that we've established with the first main hull profile that we did. And I came up with an idea that it's kind of stuck in my head that I really want to at least try. And that's to have more air vents in the front of the main hull section, in addition to the ones on the side. And again, it's purely cosmetic. And the reason for having them is because it adds visual interest in a way that makes kind of sense. Not because we know that we have machines inside that needed it, but because what kinds of things are visible on the outside of a ship? Air intakes, emitters of some kind, antennas. I mean, there's only so many things you can put on the outside of a ship to make it look interesting. But one of the safest bets is vents of some kind. So that's what we're going to do. And you can see we did a little bit of a curve, starting from the deck that we'd established and kind of moving up and forward. And now we're bringing it back. We're going up and sweeping it back towards the established center of the hull. Very simple, very straightforward curve. But one of the things that I wanted to point out, and this is important in the context of understanding what we mean by connecting lines together, is if you take a set of lines, if you stop just exactly where it is now, and if we superimpose a simple line that changes direction at every vertice where the line can no longer continue as a straight line, you get something that looks like this, which is not bad, realistically speaking. And this, obviously, for the first part, if you're looking from the left to the right, following the line up, it basically follows the hull as we have it. But where it becomes important to kind of pay attention to how things are coming together is where it no longer strictly follows the blocks that are there. It's moving from point to point instead of line to line. So you can see that long line at the very top, it's spanning like 4 or 5 blocks. But if we think of it in the context of one line, we can't continue that line any further as a straight line because there's nothing else for it to connect to. But that section there, despite the little gaps that we have underneath the line, we could say that's part of the curve. And if we take them all together, that's what we get. And that's not a bad setup, but I decided I wanted kind of a softer curve coming up and around. So if we do the same thing, using the red line to superimpose and kind of let you see a little bit more clearly how that line is going and where we're connecting the dots, so to speak. And then we superimpose the yellow line over top that shows you the line that it would have followed before we made that change. You see, it's just ever so slightly a softer curve, and that's what I was going for. I can't speak right now to exactly how that's going to translate to something that we can work with for the angles and the intersections and all those other things. But for now, for this profile, that's closer to what I wanted, and it gave me an opportunity to try, at least, to explain what I'm talking about when I say with curves in a voxel-based game, we're just connecting lines. That's all it is we're just connecting the dots to make as many straight lines as we can that flow together in a way that resembles a curve. That's the whole idea. I hope that made sense. Sometimes I get these ideas. I'll show it this way and people will understand. They're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But we can always try a different way in the future if that one wasn't well received. Here you can see we're just kind of continuing down the other side with the profile that we already established at the very beginning of the video. And again, copying things over from one side to the other without using symmetry mode when you're using profiles, at least at the very beginning, is much easier because it's just so much easier. Well, yes, in the past, when using profiles, as simple as they are to duplicate, I have still managed to do it wrong because that's just me. But you get the idea. There's a lot fewer moving parts involved in the entire process so that you can copy it over easier. And now, if you imagine some sort of hull coming together around those profiles that we've already done, it's starting to take shape as a ship, and there's hardly anything there. That's kind of the neat part of it. You do a few profiles, especially where they have an opportunity to intersect, and all of a sudden the whole thing starts to take shape even though you're not even close to done. That's the whole thing. This is another example. We set it up, we kind of stretched it down. It didn't come together at the end the way that I wanted it to. It would have been basically a long straight line, again, connecting the vertices as best we can to make that straight line. And it would have been a real mess down at the bottom to connect with what we'd already done. And I know I'm happy with what we've already done, so something had to change. And obviously the only thing that could change would be the profile, and that's what we've done. So that's kind of the thing that we're working with here. Instead this time of starting at the intersection with the profiles, we started at the base so that we get the shape that we're looking for, and then we build it up towards that intersection. It's just another way of approaching it to try and come up with that shape and the angle that we want. And again, in this case, it would have just been basically the equivalent of a long, straight, sloped line coming from the top down to the back end. And I wanted kind of a soft curve to fit with the rest of the design up to this point. So we're getting closer, and one of the things that we can do, one of the things that I've actually found is very helpful, is to remove extra blocks. If they don't need to be there when you're setting up the profiles and just leaving the lines, get rid of them. And that gives you an opportunity to declutter the area so that all you're seeing is the stuff that you need to see and not all the excess stuff blocking your view. So the next episode, we're going to continue. We're going to do the profile around the air vent, and then we're going to do the structure of the air vent. Once that's done, then we can start working on the main section of the ship. I will probably do the other air vent, the one on the other side behind the scenes, just because it's too much structurally to set up and make you guys watch it for the second time, basically. And then we can do the main structure of the hull, get everything coming together, doing what we want it to do, get the vents in place, get all the details in place, put some guns on it, and then take it out to play. We need thrusters as well, but you get the idea. So if you want to be notified about the next episode and future episodes, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.